This, what I have right now, is a new machine. I just got it. It has nothing on it beyond what's available out of the box. Actually, that's not true. The only thing I did was to clone a Git repo. And that's it. That's all I have on this machine for now. This is how my terminal looks like. And that is depressing. I cannot work like that. I need my tools and I need them to be configured just the way I like it. So here it goes. That was the easy part. Global apps that I need are installed. But my terminal is still depressing. The tools that were installed have not been configured the way I like to use them, and I'm still missing the tools specific to the demo I'm showing right now. The tools are now there, but they are still not configured properly. My terminal prompt is still depressing, and I do not like to be depressed, so let's change that. That's it. Now I'm ready to work on my laptop. Everything is set up just the way I like it, and it took me no time to get there. Getting a new laptop is amazing. There's that feeling of opening the box while knowing that what's inside is faster, better, and sleeker than the machine we were using so far. Yet, at least in my case, that joy evaporates once I realize that I need to spend a large amount of time making the new machine behave like the old one. If you're privileged or spoiled, as I am, to use multiple machines, you might want all of them to be configured the same way so you can work on any of them in the same way and use the same tools configured in the same way. And I just realized that I said the same way too many times. I, for example, tend to use a desktop computer when working from home and a laptop when traveling. Those two need to be the same, at least when software is concerned, or I will go crazy, I will go bazooka. Then there is the case of sharing configurations between people working in the same team. Some of that configuration might be in project's Git repo, but there are others that might be global. All in all, I need to install all the software I'm using on any machine, no matter whether it's old or new. And here it comes. That's the least of my problems. A bigger issue is configuring everything I'm using to behave just the way I like it. More often than not, the pain is in setting up all the .dot files. Those are hidden configuration files typically located in the home directory. They're called .dot files since they are prefixed with .dot. To begin with, there is zshrc or bashrc file that essentially contains all the instructions required to start a shell session, and that one can often have hundreds of lines alone. Then there are application-specific configurations. For example, I spent quite some time setting up Starship prompt to be just the way I like it. And the result of all that work is in the config.config starship.toml file. Essentially, I need most of the .dot files located in the home directory to be the same on any machine I might be using. If I get a new computer, it needs to behave just as the old one. And if I switch from one to another, things need to be the same as well. Now, as you can probably guess, the solution is to keep all the installation scripts and configuration files in a shared location accessible from any machine. That shared location is Git, or to be more specific, in my case, a GitHub repo. There are three problems though. How do we keep the repo always up to date with any changes made on a computer we might be using? Next, how do we synchronize what's in that repo to whichever machine we might be using? And finally, the third one is how do we ensure that secrets are not leaked to the Git repo yet synchronized into a machine we are working on? I will try to answer all those questions today. Actually, I'll do better than that. I will show how to implement solutions to those problems. Let's start with the proof that I'm not a liar, or at least that I'm experienced at simulating conditions that are not real. If I try to output zshrc, we can see that zsh configuration file does not exist. My zsh is untouched, virgin. We can confirm that other configurations are not there either. For example, if I try to output .config starship toml, we can see that one is not there either. My dear precious new machine has not been touched by a human hand. It's coming straight from the factory, except that I cloned the repo with some files. My current location is important, so let's take a look at where I am right now. I'm in a git repo .files. The important part is that I cloned that repo directly into the home directory. Remember that, since what I will show soon will be based on that fact. The first thing I need to do is install the apps I need. I created a simple shell script for that, so let's take a look at it. There is nothing special about that script. Most of the commands are brew install this and brew install that. That's such a simple and boring script that I would not be offended if you stopped watching this video and never come back. However, before you do just that, I'd advise staying a while longer, since the purpose of this video is not to show you how to install stuff. I assume that you already know that, but how to do everything else. With that in mind, let's move forward fast and simply execute the script. Now that will take a while, so let's fast forward, and a few moments later, everything is now installed. And that was the boring part that you already know how to do. The only important thing to note is that when I say everything is installed, I'm lying. I'm a lying liar that lies. The truth is that only global apps, or to be more precise, global CLIs were installed. There aren't many of them, simply because most of the tools I need are project specific, including the project to configure everything. Those project specific tools will be installed through Devbox. Here's the definition. The first thing you'll notice is that the output is depressingly ugly. There is no syntax coloring, even though we installed some tools, they are not yet configured. So cut is still cut and not analyzed to but. Apart from that, you should notice Stellar and Stow. Those two tools are essential for what we are trying to do. I will not go into Devbox and why you should use it, since I already did that in that video over there. Instead, we'll just start a new shell that will bring us the tools we need. Now that we have the tools, both those installed globally and those we need in relation to the repo we are working on, we can finally take a look at the script that does just that. Two of those lines are critical. First, since we cannot store credentials of any type in Git, we are using Teller to retrieve them from whichever secret storage we are using and generating configuration for Fabric, which is one of the tools we will use later. Teller is awesome. It is one of my favorite tools, and you should adopt it if you haven't already. Just as with Devbox, I will not go through it in more detail, since I already did that in that video over there. The key is in the Stow dot line. That one is the star of today's show. Stow is a symlink farm manager. It will take almost everything we have in this directory and create links in the parent directory. Now, I know what I just said might sound confusing. Let's just execute that script and clarify what Stow does by observing the outcome. Stow created a symbolic link, so now, for example, .zshrc from this repo is available through the link in the home directory as well, and we can, for example, source it. You will notice that everything automatically started working just the way I want it to work. The prompt changed to the Starship configuration. Everything is colored and all the tools are working. How did that magic happen? The Git repository where we are in right now has all the dot files I need on any machine I'm using or will use in the future. Do you see that beautiful output of the ls command that distinguishes between directories and different types of files? Well, that's ESA alias to ls. That's one of many outcomes of synchronizing dot files. Among other files, we can see that there is .zshrc, which is the shell configuration file. There is also .config directory with the configuration for Starship and Fabric and many other tools we might be using. Now, I will not go into details of what's in .zshrc or .config, Starship, TOML and other files. They will be different in your case. What's important is that you can have all the configuration you need in a single place and synchronize it across all your machines. That synchronization is done with Stow, which creates symbolic links in the parent directory to the files in this repository. We can see that's truly the case by taking a look at the .zshrc file located in the home directory. We can see that .zshrc is a link to .files.zshrc. That's the important part. Since it is not a physical file but a link to the file in this repository, if we pull a new version of the repo, the changes will be immediately reflected in the configuration. Similarly, if we or some application edit the file in the home directory, we will effectively edit the file in the repository, and we can push those changes to the Git repo so that it can be synchronized on other machines. The same is true for any other file in the repository. Stow converted all those files to symbolic links in the parent directory, which just so happens to be home directory where .files are. The only exceptions are entries in the .stow local ignore, which serves a similar purpose as the git ignore file. It tells Stow which files to ignore. Now that everything on this machine is set up to be the same as on any other machine I use, we can, for example, open a new terminal session and start working. We can see that the prompt is just as it should be and the tools are configured properly. To demonstrate that, we can use zoxide, which is a replacement of cd command that allows us to navigate directories more easily. So if you type cd dot and press tab, we will be taken to the dot files directory automatically. And that's it. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Cheers.